Formula One has witnessed some absolutely unbelievable rookie seasons, and in 2025 we could witness a new superstar entering the sport. With Mercedes hyping up Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Oliver Bearman stepping in at Haas, Liam Lawson potentially getting a seat at VCARB, and Jack Doohan all but signed for Alpine at this point, 2025's F1 season will be packed with rookies. If they want to make an impact on the sport though, they'll have to pull off something truly exceptional. Oscar Piastri may have been lauded for his double podium debut season, but even he can't compare to some of F1's greats. No, if the class of 2025 want to rewrite F1 history, these are the 5 drivers they'll really have to live up to. Ayrton Senna's 9th place finish in the Drivers' Championship in his debut season sounds pretty unimpressive, especially at first glance. But his performances for Tolman, who many people expected to be worse than a backmarker, were utterly incredible. The context of just how bad Tolman was is important. When Senna wasn't driving the Tolman car in 1984, it only finished 3 times in 17 attempts, and only once was that in the points. Every other time it was retired, or was too slow to classify, or was too slow to even qualify. Despite the utterly atrocious Tolman car, the Brazilian managed to finish level on points with Nigel Mansell, who was in a far more competitive Lotus. That result is even more impressive when you consider that of the 14 races that year, Senna failed to finish 8 of them, with 6 being due to mechanical failures. With all of that considered, what Ayrton achieved in 1984 in his debut season makes it one of the most impressive of all time, even if statistically it's not comparable to some of the others on this list. It didn't take long for Senna to make an impact on Formula One. He scored points in round 2 and 3 of the season in South Africa and then Belgium. In round 6 of the season though, he truly established himself as the most exciting up-and-coming talent in Formula One. Senna's performance in the wets in Monaco in 1984 is considered to this day one of the best wet weather performances of all time. It's certainly the best that I've ever seen, though obviously not live. Starting from 13th on the grid in that absolutely abysmally bad Tolman car, Senna had made his way to 2nd place by lap 19. As drivers of the caliber of Niki Lauda and Nigel Mansell were spinning off all around him. Between lap 27 and lap 31, Senna had gained on race leader Alain Prost by an average of 3.7 seconds per lap. However, with the rain hammering down, BBC commentator Murray Walker said the conditions were the worst he'd seen in a long time, declaring that the race should be stopped. And so it would come to be, as the cars rounded the final corner to finish lap 31 of 76. The red flag and checkered flag were flown at the same time. James Hunt, who was commentating alongside Murray Walker, would say, "It will be a really tragic result for Senna. However, while he's not about to be world champion this year, he will undoubtedly be world champion in the future if his career continues." While Senna wasn't given the time to overtake Alain Prost for the win, it was still a performance that showed that Senna was going to be a driver unlike any F1 had ever seen. He would go on to finish the season with 3 podiums, the least of his incredible career, but it was a clear sign of what was to come. After winning the Formula 2 title, Clay Regazzoni moved up to Formula 1 with Ferrari in 1970. The Scuderia had only entered 1 car with Jackie Ick in the opening 3 races that year, but decided to enter a second in Belgium to try out younger drivers, with Regazzoni getting his opportunity at the next race in the Netherlands. Ick had finished 2nd in the Drivers' Championship the previous season and was expected to comfortably outperform his teammate, but with the team having scored no points in the opening 4 races, expectations for Ferrari as a whole were low. Regazzoni though hit the ground running and finished 4th on his debut, a place behind his teammate. He missed the next round in France but returned a race later at Silverstone, where he took the checkered flag in P4 again. His first podium would come in his 4th Grand Prix in Austria. Clay managed to convert his 2nd place start on the grid into a 2nd place finish. It was his 5th race though that he really impressed at. Arriving at Monza, driving a Ferrari, Regazzoni would have had to deal with the pressure of the Tifosi, expecting nothing less than a win for their beloved Ferrari car. During a practice session the day before the race, championship leader Joachim Rindt would die in a crash at the Parabolica. Rindt would posthumously be pronounced the World Drivers' Champion. In Sunday's race though, Regazzoni charged from third on the grid, driving his Ferrari on the absolute edge to take his first ever win. Having raced 8 times over the course of the season, Regazzoni amassed a total of 4 podium finishes, including that one win at Monza. Despite missing out on 5 of the first 6 races and retiring with an engine issue in Germany, the Swiss racer still finished third in the championship, behind champion Joachim Rindt and teammate Jackie Ick, to cap a superb maiden campaign. While a third-place finish in a debut season had been achieved twice before, by Jackie Stewart in 1965 and Eugenio Castellotti in 1955, the fact that Clay Regazzoni managed it while only driving 8 of the 13 races made it all the more impressive. Winning the driver's title on your debut season is a feat that no F1 driver has ever achieved. When you think of those who came close, the first name that springs to mind is Lewis Hamilton, but over a decade earlier, Jacques Villeneuve came agonizingly close. On his debut campaign driving for the Williams F1 team, Villeneuve would break the record for the most wins in a debut season, taking the top step of the podium on 4 separate occasions. As a son of the late F1 legend Gilles Villeneuve, Jacques was marked for great things. Having won the Indy 500 and the IndyCar World Championship the year before, Jacques was hardly a rookie in the modern sense. At 25 years old, he was practically ancient by modern F1 rookie standards. Incredibly, Villeneuve looks set to win his maiden F1 Grand Prix. At the 1996 Australian Grand Prix, he was leading it till late on in the race, but an oil leak created a retirement risk for him, and when the team found out, they ordered him to swap places with teammate Damon Hill. He would finish the race in second in spite of the oil leak, but that won't have done much to soften the blow of losing what would have been a phenomenal debut win. He wouldn't have to wait long though, and at his 4th ever F1 race, he would claim his first victory, taking the checkered flag in Germany at the Nürburgring. While he looked incredibly promising, his teammate Hill was having the best season of his career. Villeneuve finished the year with 11 podiums in 16 races, one more than his teammate, but Hill would win 8 races against his 4. The Canadian driver ended the year second in the standings with 78 points, 19 behind his teammate. It wouldn't take too long for Jacques to live up to his incredible promise though. He would utterly dominate the following season, winning the Drivers' Championship with 81 points, almost double the 42 of his second-place teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Sadly, some terrible team changes meant that Villeneuve was never again in contention for championship glory, but those first 2 seasons were utterly magical. While the other debut seasons in this video are impressive for the incredible quality of the driving or the unbelievable results, Kimi Raikkonen's debut season in 2001 is impressive for the absolutely ridiculous way it came about. Max Verstappen may be the youngest ever F1 driver, but if you're talking about racing experience, then the Iceman has to be one of the least experienced drivers to ever make an impact in Formula 1. Sitting on the grid at the start of round 1 of the 2001 F1 season in Melbourne, a 21-year-old Kimi Raikkonen had only ever started 23 car races. He had utterly dominated in Formula Renault UK in the previous year, starting 18 races and winning 11. He had only ever competed in 2 car races outside of the UK Championship though, and should never have been anywhere near an F1 drive. Nonetheless, there he was, Juan Pablo Montoya next to him, Eddie Irvine ahead of him, and Jos Verstappen behind him. It was 6 months earlier, at a 3-day test in Mugello in North Italy, that Raikkonen had earned his right to be there. Ferrari and McLaren were there testing new parts and gathering data, but Sauber was there to test a new superstar, not that they knew it at the time. An almost unknown 20-year-old Finn arrived at the track, speaking very little English, and completely shocked those who were present. Managed by David and Steve Robertson, the father-son duo had somehow managed to convince team owner Peter Sauber that their young driver was worth having a look at. 12 months ago, Kimi had still been racing karts, but here he was, testing an F1 car at the same track as Michael Schumacher. On his second day in the Sauber car, on his 35th lap ever in F1 machinery, Raikkonen was half a second faster than Pedro Diniz, who was in his 6th F1 season at the time and had already done 78 laps of testing in the Sauber car at Mugello during the test. Jackie Eckelart, a Sauber race engineer at the time, spoke of the impact Kimi had by recounting that very first day of testing. On the evening of the first day, after the briefing, and while I was making the program for day 2, there was a knock on the door of the motorhome and it was Michael Schumacher. He asked who the new driver was that was driving the Sauber. I told him it was Kimi and that 12 months ago he'd just been racing karts. He said, "Well, he'll be very, very fast." After the test, Peter Sauber was convinced. The team had to beg the FIA to give Raikkonen a super license and let him race, but their faith was rewarded. From 13th on the grid at his debut Grand Prix, just his 24th car race ever, Raikkonen would produce a sensational drive to finish 6th and score his first ever F1 points. With all of the junior series and rookie testing that happens in modern F1 now, the thought of someone joining the grid, let alone scoring points with so little experience, is completely unthinkable. But Kimi did it. He would add 3 more points finishes to his tally by the end of the season in a Sauber car that was not the most reliable in the field or the quickest. Come the end of the season, Raikkonen not only finished 10th in the World Championship with 9 points, just 3 points behind his more experienced teammate Nick Heidfeld in 8th, but he'd also done enough to earn a spot at McLaren for the 2002 season. While not the most impressive statistically, it was a rookie season that should never have even happened, and therefore earns a place in this video. There are a few ways to rank Formula One's greatest ever rookies. You could judge them by how close they got to winning an F1 title, or the number of races they won, or how they fared against their teammates, or maybe the impact they had on the sport. While some drivers can be said to have excelled at one of those, or maybe 2, or perhaps 3, there's only one driver who could come out on top of all 4 of those categories. Sir Lewis Hamilton, Formula One's most successful driver. His rookie season was one that made not just the Formula One world, but the sporting world instantly pay attention and changed the sport forever. Hamilton was set to begin his Formula One journey when he signed for McLaren to compete in the 2007 season. By competing in F1 that season, it meant he'd already broken one record. Lewis Hamilton became the first black driver to ever compete in Formula One in the sport's entire history. Prior to the start of the season, it looked like Hamilton had quite the test ahead of him. Chosen to be his teammate was Fernando Alonso, who'd just signed for McLaren. Alonso was coming right off the back of winning 2 titles with Renault and was hoping to collect a 3rd with McLaren. Despite being the reigning GP2 champion, expectations for Hamilton, especially alongside Alonso, were pretty low. How wrong they would turn out to be. Despite being a rookie, Hamilton hit the ground running from his first ever F1 race at Turn 1 of Albert Park on lap 1. The young Brit overtook Alonso and BMW driver Robert Kubica at the first corner to take 2nd position. Lewis managed to keep Alonso behind him for most of the race before losing out at the 2nd round of pit stops where Alonso jumped him. Hamilton went on to score a podium in his first ever F1 race after finishing P3, with Alonso finishing P2 behind race winner Kimi Raikkonen. That first podium started an almost impossible run of 9 podium finishes in a row. A Herculean effort for a rookie F1 driver. 5 races into his F1 career, 5 podium finishes, Hamilton was probably wondering what he had to do to get his first ever F1 win. In round 6 of the season, it would finally happen. In Canada, a first ever Formula One pole position would set the young Brit up perfectly for Sunday, cruising from the front of the grid to a commanding victory. 3 more wins in America, Hungary and Japan made him the odds-on favourite for the title. Excluding F1's first ever season for obvious reasons, no rookie had ever won the World Championship title, and Hamilton was on the cusp of making history. Going into the penultimate round of the championship in China, Hamilton led the drivers' standings on 107 points, with teammate Fernando Alonso 12 behind him on 95, and Ferrari's Kimi Raikkonen a further 5 behind on 90. With points only paid to the top 8 drivers at the time and a meager 10 points for a win, all Hamilton had to do was score 9 points, a 4th and a 5th place finish, and he would have won the title no matter what else happened. However, it wasn't meant to be, as 2 disastrous races saw his title challenge disintegrate. In China, with changing conditions, Hamilton found himself on very worn tyres and in desperate need of a pit stop. Running in second place, he was unable to slow his car down at the pit entry and found himself beached in the gravel and was forced to retire from the race. It was a disaster, but it shouldn't have ended his title dreams. With just the Brazilian Grand Prix remaining, Hamilton still led the championship by 4 points ahead of Alonso and 7 ahead of Raikkonen. Even if his teammate won the final race, a second-place finish would be good enough for a previously unimaginable Drivers' Championship title in Hamilton's rookie season. Qualifying second on the grid, with his teammate in 4th, everything was going perfectly for Hamilton, but a gearbox problem on race day left him down on power and out of luck. He would finish 7th in the race, and with Alonso coming 3rd, the two would tie on points, leaving Kimi Raikkonen to take the driver's title by a single point. While Hamilton's debut season may be a story of pain, it's still one of the greatest of all time, probably is the greatest of all time, and it's one that changed the sport forever.